media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amba News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Ambazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed, with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news, untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Ambazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Ambazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambatv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
From the savannah to the Midland and the Atlantic, Ambazonia has risen to fall no more. Ambazonia rise.
Dear Ambazonians on the home front and diaspora.
Dear Ambazonia freedom fighters in the home front and in the diaspora.
The Ethics Commission of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia is coming out to alert you that it is becoming more and more evident that the former British Southern Cameroons, aka Ambazonians, will soon emerge as the newest nation in the world.
We are calling on all of us to start preparing to receive Ambazonia as parents prepare to receive their firstborn child. Malcolm X said, tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. We are already very educated, talented, and very rich in natural resources. Do all this guarantee a safe and prosperous Ambazonia? The answer is an emphatic no. Theodore Roosevelt said, to educate a person in the mind but not in morals is to educate a menace in society.
Ambazonians, it is time to start planning to restore our cultural and social values that characterize us as a people of good repute. Before our Republic to Cameroon invasion, we were respectful of each other, of the law, and of our culture. We earned our living through honest hard work, making clean money for ourselves.
Our values helped us to maximize the benefits of our natural resources as well as our human resources. Southern Cameroons were serene and clean, simply beautiful in spirit and in the physical. We all long for such a place to call home, and we can make it happen by God's grace.
Our local government areas and counties, are you prepared? Do you have an ethics commission in your local government areas, counties to serve as a moral compass for you? Do you have a copy of the Ambazonia Ethics Code and the Constitution.
All arms of government, do you have an ethics agency? Departments of DSS, HSS, Communications and IT, Education, DHACM, DFA and DEINR. Do you have ethics agency to serve as a moral compass for your departments?
Ambazonians, you need to know your rights by reading the Ethics Code and the Constitution.
Shame unethical behavior and reward good behavior in your communities. Hold leaders accountable. Be the watchdog of your communities and governments. See something, say something.
The church, you are the main research center of moral principles with the responsibility of moralizing the society. How effective are you outside the church building?
Maya Angelou said, when you know better, then you do better. Ambazonians, watch Ethics for an Emerging Ambazonia every Friday at 10 p.m. Amba time.
Exclusively on ABC Amba TV. Stay tuned.
The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amba News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Ambazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, and 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is, we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Ambazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Ambazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambatv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team. Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. At a time when students need the best focus, Sonatrach deprives students of electricity within GCE examinations for 2 days. This is La Republic du Cameroon for you. NEO claims there will be disruption because of reconstruction. The question you would want to ask would be, must such work be done only now when final year students are writing the General Certificate of Examination GCE? After destroying the educational system and complicating the study environment, they now want to victimize students. On another count, in our radar for today's Undaunted is the UK's insistence to deport asylum seekers in Africa. Can you imagine? Is this possible? It would appear that the UK is ready to despise even the available legal framework to protect the displaced and the oppressed. The international community would be playing with fire if it failed to help Africa recover from COVID and the impact of the Ukraine war. The International Monetary Fund's director for the continent has said, will they hearken to wise counsel? Will the UK understand that these flea people can just be resourceful to their economic group? What is the relevance of globalization if people cannot have shelter in a developed country like the UK? Our academics have rarely gone to school for the beauty of knowledge. For the overwhelming majority, it is the desire to come and swagger with their degrees that would give them primacy to have the honors of the nations and to occupy the highest administrative positions to manage the budget, says La Republic du Cameroon's Dieudonné Assomba. In today's Undaunted, we will get back on the gimmick of Yaoundé's divide and conquer strategy, but take a deep breath and wait to digest the headlines first.
These are the prime headlines for today. UK Home Office plans second flight to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda. Dieudonné Assomba is on it again. He cries out as he warns the government about its university dons and advisors. The anti-soccer marks of Abdul Karim Ali has finally fallen, Elangwe Joseph captions. Sonatrach deprives students of electricity within GCE examinations for 2 days. How will Africa recover from the post-COVID-19 and the impact of the Ukraine war is a story we will be dissecting today. We will be discussing on the gimmick of Yaoundé's divide and conquer strategy. By 9 p.m. Amba time today, the Secretary of State for Communications and IT Secretary Martin Munga PhD FARCE on his usual State of the Liberation Movement talk will give us the interim government position on trending issues. And in sports, Premier League player arrested on suspicion of rape in North London.
continent was short-sighted and neglect Africa now, and we will face labor shortages globally, IMF warns. West's response to effects of COVID and Ukraine war condemned as short-sighted collective failure to invest in future human capital. The international community will be playing with fire if it failed to help Africa recover from COVID and the impact of the Ukraine war, the International Monetary Fund's director for the continent has said. Failure to invest and support the continent was short-sighted and detrimental to the global economy, as half of the new entrants into the global workforce over the next decade would come from sub-Saharan Africa, Abebe Amro Selassie, director of the IMF's Africa Department, told The Guardian. In 10 years, 1 out of every 2 individuals entering into the global labor force will come from sub-Saharan Africa, the very children whose education the pandemic has disrupted, he said. The human capital we need to motor the global economy is not getting the attention it needs. It's a massive collective failure, he added. Almost certainly, unless we think robots are going to take care of everything, there is going to be a shortage of labor in most advanced economies and even elsewhere. Despite all the innovations we have had, labor has shifted from one sector to another, and 60 to 70% of the population has remained in work. People will move to different professions, but people will still keep working. Globally, we are going to need labor to complement capital, and that labor input can increasingly only come from Africa. Selassie, who has worked at the IMF for 28 years, added that the successes seen across the continent since the 1990s, the result of domestic reforms, a booming global economy, and generous aid and debt relief packages, had gone into reverse. COVID, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which has disrupted global supply chains and led to soaring commodity prices and falling aid budgets, had exacerbated the continent's already slowing economies, he said. Selassie told the 13th Andrew Crockett Lecture Governors Roundtable for African Central Bankers in Oxford last week that the IMF had given sub-Saharan countries $50 billion, that is £41 billion, since March 2020 to support them during the pandemic. But its effectiveness will be greater still if it was complementing rather than partly offsetting declining support from other development partners. 3 African countries, Ethiopia, Somalia, and South Sudan, are facing acute food insecurity because of failed rains, rising food prices, and a lack of donor support. The UK government, the 4th largest donor, has cut aid spending from 0.7% of its gross national income to 0.5%, which resulted in a 20% reduction in funding between 2020 and 2021 from £14.4 billion to £11.5 billion. The Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office has also halved humanitarian aid spending from £1.5 billion in 2020 to £744 million in 2021. Despite the difficulties Africa was facing, Selassie had absolutely no doubt about the region's future, he said. One way or another, it will develop, he added. The question is, can we accelerate this development and avert too many people suffering in that process? Gab Ellison reporting from Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amba TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amba TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amba TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amba TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amba TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amba TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned.
We sincerely apologize for that technical mix-up here. Do not worry, you didn't really miss much because we will begin the news from beginning. Now, the Home Office is planning a second flight to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda, which could take off before the courts have ruled on whether the scheme is lawful, the Guardian has learned. Now, it is understood that a second flight could take off in a matter of weeks, despite the fact that the full High Court hearing to examine the government's Rwanda plan does not begin until July 19th. Home Office sources said they would not comment on operational matters or speculation. This is where we will begin the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. I am Onyi Opala, and as always, I have Stir Smart here with me. Good evening, Stir.
Good evening, Onyi. Fellow Ambazonians, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. During an earlier High Court hearing, the Charities Detention Action and Care for Colors, the PCS union that represents about 80% of Home Office Border Force staff and several individual asylum seekers threatened with removal to Rwanda unsuccessfully made an urgent application to the George to halt the first flight, which was due to leave on 14th June. The flight was subsequently grounded after an interim 11th-hour intervention from the European Court of Human Rights. During the court hearing, the judge in the case, Mr. Justice Swift, asked the Home Office counsel, Matthew Gulick QC, whether the Home Office was planning any further flights to Rwanda in the near future. Gulick replied, the Home Office intends to make arrangements for further flights this year. There may be a further flight scheduled between now and July. It will require approval from the Rwandan government. The organization Stop Deportations posted a message on social media on 24th June stating, "We have heard that the Home Office has started to detain dozens of people to deport them to Rwanda."
After the European Court interim measure grounded the 14th June flight, Home Secretary Preeti Patel said she was disappointed by the legal challenge, criticized the ECHR ruling, and said the policy would continue. She says, and I quote, "We will not be deterred from doing the right thing and delivering our plans to control our nation's borders. Our legal team are reviewing every decision made on these flights and preparation for the next flights to begin now. It is understood the Home Office has made submission to the European Court to set aside the interim ruling." When The Guardian asked the European Court about the procedure when considering such submissions, a spokesperson said, "An interim measure decision can be reviewed at the request of one of the parties. An interim measure would usually only be lifted if the court was satisfied that there was no imminent risk of irreparable harm to the appellant. The test could normally be satisfied in an expulsion case if either there was no imminent risk of expulsion. The court was satisfied that if expelled, there would no longer be a real risk of irreparable harm."
A Home Office spokesperson said, "We remain committed to our world-leading migration partnership with Rwanda, which will see those arriving dangerously, illegally, or unnecessarily into the UK relocated to rebuild their lives. This is vital to prevent loss of lives in the channel and break the business model of people smugglers. Preparation for the next flight are underway." Home Office sources added, "No court has actually ruled that this partnership is unlawful, and that includes the European Court of Human Rights ECHR, in spite of the fact that there is discrimination and racism against blacks globally. Africans remain fighters globally, especially in economy." Gabellison has a report where the IMF advises the international community of their policy actions and what it will cost. Let's have the report from Gab Ellison.
Neglect Africa now, and we will face labor shortages globally, IMF warns. West's response to effects of COVID and Ukraine war condemned as short-sighted collective failure to invest in future human capital. The international community will be playing with fire if it failed to help Africa recover from COVID and the impact of the Ukraine war, the International Monetary Fund's director for the continent has said. Failure to invest and support the continent was short-sighted and detrimental to the global economy, as half of the new entrants into the global workforce over the next decade would come from sub-Saharan Africa, Abebe Amro Selassie, director of the IMF's Africa Department, told The Guardian. In 10 years, 1 out of every 2 individuals entering into the global labor force will come from sub-Saharan Africa, the very children whose education the pandemic has disrupted, he said. The human capital we need to motor the global economy is not getting the attention it needs. It's a massive collective failure, he added. Almost certainly, unless we think robots are going to take care of everything, there is going to be a shortage of labor in most advanced economies and even elsewhere. Despite all the innovations we have had, labor has shifted from one sector to another, and 60 to 70% of the population has remained in work. People will move to different professions, but people will still keep working. Globally, we are going to need labor to complement capital, and that labor input can increasingly only come from Africa. Selassie, who has worked at the IMF for 28 years, added that the successes seen across the continent since the 1990s, the result of domestic reforms, a booming global economy, and generous aid and debt relief packages, had gone into reverse. COVID, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which has disrupted global supply chains and led to soaring commodity prices and falling aid budgets, had exacerbated the continent's already slowing economies, he said. Selassie told the 13th Andrew Crockett Lecture Governors Roundtable for African Central Bankers in Oxford last week that the IMF had given sub-Saharan countries $50 billion, that is £41 billion, since March 2020 to support them during the pandemic. But its effectiveness will be greater still if it was complementing rather than partly offsetting declining support from other development partners. 3 African countries, Ethiopia, Somalia, and South Sudan, are facing acute food insecurity because of failed rains, rising food prices, and a lack of donor support. The UK government, the fourth largest donor, has cut aid spending from 0.7% of its gross national income to 0.5%, which resulted in a 20% reduction in funding between 2020 and 2021 from £14.4 billion to £11.5 billion. The Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office has also halved humanitarian aid spending from £1.5 billion in 2020 to £744 million in 2021. Despite the difficulties Africa was facing, Selassie had absolutely no doubt about the region's future. He said, "One way or another, it will develop," he added. The question is, can we accelerate this development and avert too many people suffering in that process? Gab Ellison reporting from Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
Some weeks back, we brought you a report about Dieudonné Zumber, a very sound-minded francophone of Bully Betty extraction, where he warned La Republique time and again that they will never win the war. He tagged it as a stupid war, actually, that they declared on Ambazonia. He told La Republique de Cameroon, without chewing his words, that these Ambazonians you see today, sooner or later you will see them no more. He quotes examples of Southern Sudan and many others and said Ambazonians are in a legitimate fight, which to them is an ideology, and that no army in the world has won such a war. Well, in case you were not on the news on that particular day, it's just a reminder of how Dieudonné Zumber's story has come on Undaunted and how we handled it earlier. Today, he writes on the sad loneliness of the government.
He says, and I read, "I have repeatedly warned the government about its university dons and their advice. Our academics have rarely gone to school for the beauty of knowledge. For the overwhelming majority, it is the desire to come and swagger with their degrees that would give them primacy to have the honors of the nation and to occupy the highest administrative positions to manage the budget. The tragic consequence is that they do not work to improve themselves and give practical content to their knowledge. They recite books, theories, and authors, and this is what they call knowledge. But they do not care about the practical content of their knowledge. But they do not care about the operational usefulness of this bookish knowledge for their country. As long as the country is doing well, you see them pontificating on the media, but at the slightest difficulty, they flee without warning."
One of the illustrations of this situation he highlighted is the terrible economic crisis in which Cameroon is desperately struggling. In his words, he said, "This crisis I announced since 2012 when I noticed that the development program of Cameroon did not respect the balances and especially the permanent threat of underdeveloped economies represented by the terrible external counterpart lock." Now, I will explain this concept once again. A country can only develop if it buys from the outside to match what it sells. Otherwise, it gets into debt and runs the risk of an adjustment. Consequently, a country's development only makes sense if it maintains its external balances.
Only you know you're right, because you can't have a growth policy without worrying about how the income generated will be used. In other words, you have to make sure that this additional income is directed towards the consumption of local goods and not towards massive imports. If you don't take this precaution, what will happen? Well, you will indeed have growth, but at the cost of an explosive trade deficit and debt. And that is exactly what is happening in Cameroon.
Yes, Star, you are very correct. It is in view of this phenomenon that Dieudonné Zumber proposed the creation of a binary currency that would forcibly block part of the income generated by growth and direct it towards local production. Since Cameroon has neither a monetary policy nor a trade policy with regard to the APAs and the WTOs, binarization was the only way in which we could have neutralized the external counterparty lock and escaped the crisis. Unfortunately, he was savagely opposed by those academics who inspired and advised that this famous, totally irrational and one-armed great ambitious program.
Another aspect highlighted by Dieudonné Essomba is government's loneliness. He says, this famous Anglophone crisis that is destroying Cameroon, our country is not an exception in the world and we do not have the monopoly of the cessation. The study of cessation movements shows that we can have two types of results. Either the cessation is resolved by force or by political consensus, or it wins and obtains separation. To solve this problem, one should not assume that the government will win because Nigeria has defeated the Biafran secession. Because if Nigeria did it, Sudan failed to defeat the South Sudanese secession and Ethiopia gave in to Eritrea. We should therefore not assume a victory for the central state because nothing tells us that the case of Ambazonia is closer to Biafra than to South Sudan.
It is these errors of analysis supported by high-profile academics that have pushed the government into these bloody abyss where Cameroonian youths are drowning. As I said from the outset against these enlightened academics who were calling for my arrest, the Anglophone crisis is not one that can be solved within the framework of a unitary state. It is a secession that is too big since it extends over 42,000 kilometers and embraces 20% of the population. Secondly, it has obvious historical foundations since the southern Cameroons had a different colonial history and existed as a federated state. You cannot, therefore, obliterate these realities overnight on the basis of a selective reading of history and legal and institutional fiddling. It was clearly a lie to believe that Anglophones could be absorbed in a unitary state, and such a project was totally unrealistic. Cameroon's academics, through abstruse quotations and abracadabra theories, convinced the government that all it had to do was to use force. By using convoluted expressions such as third category force and fancy words, they gave the secession a totally romantic vision of a small movement that could be reduced by a squad of gendarmes. Now that secession is reviewed in its true nature as a fierce and ruthless bloody war waged by people presenting themselves as an army of liberation against the occupying forces, these academics have disappeared. They are nowhere to be seen, except two: Owuna Nguni, who has exchanged his status as a high strategist teaching, and the École de Guerre for fact of coaching the indomitable lions. Edward Bogain, who became an exegete of the Bible. The others have disappeared at a time when the government needs them more than ever. This is exactly the intellectual staff on which Beer and his government have based their hopes. Where can people of this nature lead you? They are simply waiting for the fall of the regime to put themselves at the service of the next master.
You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amba TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned. You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amba TV, the voice of Ambazonia.
Now let's look at the senatorial deprived students of electricity within the GCE examination for 2 days.
Oh,
Star,
yes.
what do you think?
Yeah, there's been a series of discussion about this one. We have seen an announcement that it read, Dear authorities, parents and customers, Sonatrol has this Friday informed NEO of works in its network between the Sunday 3rd of July 2022 and Monday 4th of July 2022 with impact on the electrical service. Disruptions are expected over the 2 days of work. The Colonial Corporation and NEO Cameroon will activate some of its thermal power plants in a local and limited distribution scheme in order to reduce the disruption as much as possible. Eneo Cameroon is fully supportive of its customers in these difficult times. Eneo says, "This may appear as a good action, right, but is only one of the right things at the wrong time. As usual with the La République du Cameroon, the colonial government to increase the plight of the common man."
The question you would want to ask is, must such work be done only now when final year students are writing the General Certificate of Examination, GCE, after destroying the educational system and complicating the study environment, they now want to victimize students? Why such challenges with electricity after spending huge amounts of taxpayers' money creating artificial dams in La République du Cameroon and the natural Menchum Falls that can supply the whole of West Africa located in southern Cameroon begging to be exploited? Wait a moment, what is cheaper? To explore an already existing natural Menchum Fall or create artificial falls? Just in an attempt to impoverish the peoples of Ambazonia and make them more vulnerable.
Companies have understood the Yaoundé regime that they don't really care about what happens to the civilian population, be it in the French Cameroon or in Ambazonia. Sonatrach, a company charged with the supply of electricity in La République du Cameroon and southern Cameroon, decides to carry out repairs works only when final year students of the first circle and second circle are writing their certificate examination. 2 days of blackout is enough punishment for these students who need to revise their notes to better get ready for the aforementioned examinations. This decision of Sonatrach to disrupt electricity supply is coming 1 week after the commencement of the GCE examinations. This examination is programmed for 2 weeks. Unfortunately, this disruption is only for some particular areas, whereas this examination is a national one and there will be no special consideration to the disfavored students during the correction of scripts.
The Cameroons are facing electricity power supply shortages just after the Yaoundé regime carried out the construction of hydroelectric power plants of Lompanga Dam, Mekin Hydroelectric Dam and the Menville Hydroelectric Dam, all in La République du Cameroon and none in southern Cameroon, none in Ambazonia. Southern Cameroon is naturally blessed with the Menchum Falls, a beautiful tourist destination, and has the ability to supply electricity to all the countries of West Africa if only it is exploited. Imagine for 1 minute how much economic development this will bring Ambazonia. Now you can see the multi-dimensional framework of the colonial administration, massive calculation to annihilate a people.
Well, moving into the Abdul Karim case right here. Abdul Karim is at it again. He is at it again.
Yeah, you know, he makes a condescending statement after President Dr. Samuel Ikomesaku, and I think that's unwise to do.
Indeed. And Amazonians are, of course, on him. They have fallen on him like manawa, like bees. If you don't know what manawa is, then I think we should just leave it at that for now.
Actually, I think we do not have any analysis to make. Amazonians have expressed themselves elaborately, and all we have to do is just to bring it to you just as it is.
Let me take the first elaborate reaction to Abdul Karim's statement, which is from Elangwe Joseph. He writes, and I read, he captions it, "The anti-Sacco mask of Abdul Karim Ali has finally fallen." It is sad and treacherous that Abdul Karim Ali, who represents no group in Ambazonia but was graciously invited to join the Ambazonian coalition team Team Ambazonia, has finally proven that he is part of the colonial and genocidal French Cameroon coup plotters seeking to bring down our focused president Sacco and help colonial and genocidal French Cameroon destroy the Ambazonians' people liberation struggle. The double-standard hypocrite who once said he can't sit even with federalists for a talk but is now communing not only with Federalist, Frundi, and brainwashed and enslaved Anglophones, Unionists, but also communing with the Bulu Beti genocide perpetrator, Col Emile Bankwi. From the day colonial and genocidal French Cameroon presidency gave security clearance for Abdul Karim Ali to be received by the visiting envoy of Pope Francis in Bamenda in the presence of Ferdinand Ngongo and top French Cameroon military officers, it was evident that Abdul Karim Ali was one of their agents planted to infiltrate the Ambazonian people's liberation struggle. You know, there is no doubt the guy is a staunch supporter of Ambazonia, head-cutter Ayaba Cho Lucas, and has never dared to call to order his Muslim Fulani brothers contracted by colonial French Cameroon to kill Ambazonians. Comrade UN foresaw this and warned Ambazonians he was called a conspirator and attacked by activists like stateless citizens. Today, God has finally let the mask to fall, so even blind Ambazonians can see the true genocide and colonial French Cameroon agent Abdul Karim Ali. May the Most High God, watchman over the nation of Ambazonia, continue to watch over our focus, President Sako and our ARFs, as well as continue to expose all the double-standard hypocrites in the Ambazonian people's liberation struggle. This article ends here. This is quite serious, Onyi.
Indeed, that's what Guzan Kra had to say, and he captions his own as the triumphant horse rider on a mission critical to the first one, critical to use his voice to bundle the rogues and the legitimate leadership of the revolution together into one mess. 2, delegitimize all them equally without exception. 3, destroy the people's trust in the Ambazonian leadership in general, give none a pass. And 4, take down especially the tallest amongst them and every legitimacy he enjoys. 5, preach IG, ADF, KMG, and projects the C4S poster boy Grand Julio as the face of the revolution. 6, turn the people against the leadership of the revolution by accusing Dr. Sako too of being insensitive to their sufferings. Uses phrases like, the people are dying, the suffering is too much, but even Dr. Sako is against collaboration that would have solved the problem. 7, so GZ might repudiate all leaders, including Dr. Sako. 8, weaken the struggle through a rejection of its leadership. 9, the one Cameroon scavengers will then go in for their special status. Does it sound like a plan La Republic will pay a good price for? Guzan Cryer, aka the full defense man, says that. What do you think?
You've heard from Elangwe Joseph and Guzan Cryer. To crown it all up, Comrade Don Wanobi had to say this. He had this to say. The one man who may have benefited the most from President Samuel Sako's diplomatic gestures is Comrade Abdul Karim Ali. When Comrade Abdul Karim Ali was kidnapped by the Yaoundé terrorist regime, the Foreign Diplomatic Corps in Yaoundé, specifically those countries who backed President Samuel Sako's Swiss-led mediation process, demanded for his release as a goodwill gesture, being an asset of political reconciliation under this medium. Today, the man who escaped death and torture on the privilege of his representation of Ambazonia under Swiss mediation is putting other names ahead of his true leader. If someone like Abdul Karim has failed to recognize the blessings that Sako is, then please don't trust me, for I may also betray him one day. We shall reveal what would have become of the liberation struggle without President Samuel Sako's Swiss mediation. Don Wanobi said this.
You're watching the People's Television, ABC Amba TV, the voice of Ambazonia. Stay tuned.
All right, let's go to the story of Moja Moja. Moja Moja is a southern Cameroonian born from the Mbankwiri land. He works with the government as a traitor against his own people. He does a lot of things that are against the law. He beats people at random. Now, reports reaching to us says just last week he was arrested because he beat someone to death. Now, this is another video imagine. He has just been arrested using the pretext of Amba boys to beat off these people. He goes around beating Amba boys or the ARF to go above the law and oppress them. What they are doing can be classified as state-sponsored terrorism. That is, if you agree with us, because he has shown himself to be above the law. He does whatever he likes, and so far, nobody questions him.
Yeah, just last week, reports reached us that he actually arrested someone, beat them up, and that person did not survive. That person died. According to Kemi Ashu, she said she reports about a mother who lost her son due to this pretext. The mother said, "My son, with whom I live here in Douala, went to the southwest to work in construction sites. He was arrested along with other people by Moja Moja, who accuses them of being Ambazonians. After arresting them, he handed them over to the gendarmes who asked me for a large sum of money for his release. I have explained that he is not Ambazonia, but they insist that I have to pay for them to release him." Watch it for yourself. There's a video.
You stay for South Kasa. Shout for up. You stay for side. Shout. You be picky for us village. Shout. Speak for small baba. Speak for small baba. What do you be a name? Eh? Akumbu Cyprian from Bamba Kino. Okay. You. What do you be a name? Outabo
Augustine
from which village?
from Small Babanki.
Babanki, the same village now.
Yeah.
Oh, give me that village. What will be your name? Huh? From which village? Small Baba. Down. Small Baba. You know now who na so. You know now the phone about.
No.
Una know my name.
No.
Me I be Moja Moja. Una phone na come Babanki now. For now, I never talk say una be Amba. But that player catch una how they call that place. Today na Wednesday. Today na Monday now. Then una fall from Babanki. All na work na one work. Talk true.
No.
Una work na one work. Any man dey work you own. Yes, I need do na any bad thing. But why if you say any Monday, when una talk say na ghost town, now bad thing dey happen. Oh una, the other day I catch your hand there. I no heard no Bamenda man because if my back report that they catch am. You say una all una come out for us village. Babanki no. Una know na who una now so wetin una name? Say Moja Moja.
Moja.
Wetin?
Moja.
My name na Eti.
Moja.
Today na Monday, no show them my moto. Yes, na my moto that. Show am back for me. They record the video. Una talk say Moja no like bad people. Shout.
I don't like bad people.
I go level na for Shanda for identification. Yeah. Let me know so. Okay, una say bye bye. Say Moja to go level for Shanda. Order. You stay for South Kasa. Shout for up. You stay for side. Shout. You be picky for us village. Shout. Speak for small baba. Speaking for small baba. What will be your name? Eh? Akumbu Cyprian from Bamba Kino. Okay. You. What will be your name? Outabo
Augustine
from which village?
from Small Babanki.
Babanki, the same village now.
Yeah.
Oh, give me that village. What will be your name? Eh? From which village? Small Baba. Down. Small Baba. You know now who una so. You know now the phone about.
No.
Una know my name.
No.
Me I be Moja Moja. Una phone na come Babanki now. For now, I never talk say una be Amba. But that player catch una how they call that place. Today na Wednesday. Today na Monday now. Then when I fall from Babanki, all na work na one work. Talk true.
No.
When I want na one work.
Any man they work.
Any man dey work you honor.
With school, they work staff, very good, and they work
Yes, I need do na any bad thing, But why if you say any Monday, when I talk say na ghost town, now bad thing dey happen. Oh na the other day I catch one dem. I no heard no Bamenda man because if my back report that they catch am. You say na all na come for village. Babanki no. Una no na who una now so wetin una need. Say moja.
Moja.
Wetin?
Moja.
My name na Eti.
Moja.
Today na Monday, no show them my moto. Yes, na my moto that. Show am back for me. Then go the video. When I talk say much I no like bad people. Shout.
I don't like bad people.
I go level na for Janda for identification. Yeah. Let me know so. Okay, when I say bye bye. Say much I go level for Janda.
All right, yo, welcome back. As usual, we have our news director, Mr. Tapadi King, who is also our in-house analyst and commentator who would be reacting on that particular news information that we have right there for you. But before he comes on, I mean, I was just discussing with Star Smart at the back scene, thinking out loud. I mean, Moja seems to be a very young person. You would want to think that as young as he is, he would understand that young people should know the truth and do the right thing. Because, I mean, they have all the gadgets to read wide and to examine themselves and to follow the right track and to know what is wrong and to know what is right. So it's quite sad that you see a young person following this pattern, doing this to his fellow young people. I mean, Estelle, what do you think?
You've seen the video for yourself, and him hoisting the Cameroon flag. You know, his aggression is basically saying they're from Ambazonia. So that's the major crime. And then he just arrests people and...
But then you ask yourself, what right does he have, I mean, to do what he's doing without anyone questioning him, just like we reported? He seems to be sponsored, probably.
Definitely. A single, I don't think young men would watch one single person, you know, bundle all four of them. He has to have some backup, some support, some sponsor to make him, you know, have that much ego to do that.
Yeah, I think so. Let's have Mr. Ta, if he's here already. All right, because I think that this is a major issue. It's difficult, or it's a different story altogether. When we see the military from La Republic to Cameroon, you know, mount on Ambazonian boys, or mounted Amber boys as they call them, you know that, oh, okay, these ones are prepared for the war and this is what they are here to oppress the people, just like they've been doing. But when you see a young man, I mean, it calls for several questioning. But then you would ask yourself, how is he able to make four others loyal to him? What kind of strength does he have? Indeed. I mean, these and more we want to find out when Mr. Tapadi King comes on to analyze this video and this report for us.
Yeah.
And
you know, from Kemi Ashu's report, she said, a mother reported to Mojo in regards to one of the boys he arrested that my son, with whom I live here in Douala, went to the southwest to work in construction sites. He was arrested along with other people by Moja, who accuses them of being Ambazonians. After arresting them, he handed them over to the gendarmes, who asked me for a large sum of money for his release. She says, I have explained that he is not Ambazonia, but they insist that I have to pay for them to release. So it shows that they were targeting Ambazonians.
But then...
whether they're criminals or not. So being an Ambazonia is the crime to Moja.
So what right does Moja have to arrest people?
Sometimes maybe not right, just backing. That's why it's him going above the law. Not having any reason to arrest someone, but arresting the person because you have some sort of sponsor and support and backup.
Knowing that no matter what happens, you're always safe. Nothing can happen
to you for going above the law and breaking the law. While we wait for Tapadi King, just to confirm, Tapadi King, okay? this is a kind of, topic that our news director would definitely like to react to, He's young and he can't relate to these things. I mean, he has a very, very sound mind in reasoning. And in topics like this, it's something that an analyst like him, a news director like him, would have a thing or two to say about. Mr. Tar, please, we can't wait for your analysis.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you girls have given a very good analysis of it. The main reason why I'm coming is not even to make an analysis, because I was just sitting back and enjoying your analysis. It was so beautiful. You gave all the reasons why Moja is recalcitrant. I want to apologize because I'm quite sure maybe I'm not formally dressed for this program. I was not planning to come live. Right after now, we're supposed to have the SOS, but I just want to announce to that's why I'm even coming live now, that we're having some technical issues with the studio in Washington. There was a power failure about 2 hours ago, and it has created some issues. So we cannot pick his signals. And the message he wants to give, I've been told, is so vital. There should be no interruption. When he's speaking, he's talking not just to the Amazonian community, but also to the international community. So we will be sending out a flyer of his program tomorrow to tell you definitely it's not going to be tomorrow. And I'm also not sure Thursday, but I was just speaking with him on phone right now, the State for Communication and IT. Possibility that on Friday at 8 p.m. Amba time, have the Martin Mungwa on ABC Amba TV to talk on the state of the liberation movement. Now, on the issue of Moja, Star Smart and Onye, you are doing amazing. Your observation cannot be different from my observation, not just because I want to agree with you, because that is the fact of the matter. Moja kills our people, beats them with impunity. What I want Amazonians to see, or the international community to see, is the cruelty that we as a people have been soaked into for 60 years. Moja is it's not an educated person. To get into the Cameroonian army, you do not need to be educated. He's an illiterate, picked up and made an army. He's having privileges from the colonial government because he has chosen to betray his people. So the Cameroonian government cannot even talk about law because they operate with lawlessness. There is no legal framework, even within the kangaroo courts of the Cameroon, that gives to Moja the right to do what he's doing. He will oppress anyone, because look, and in this country, you cannot just meet any person on the road, even if you are a police or a state official. Even President Biden cannot just pick a civilian on the streets and you're shaving the person's head. Now this is what he's doing. He's embarrassing the people. He does not only embarrass them or embarrasses them, he tortures them. Now his pretentious thing that he will be taking these individuals to the Jadat is not true. Do not be surprised to hear some of them are dead. So that's what he does. And the Prime Minister is actually encouraging this. If you choose within the Cameroons to work for the colonial government, you can kill, you can steal, and nothing is done to you. That is not the country we as a people want to belong. We cannot be a part of that country. And if you girls will permit, I may want to comment on the social media reaction of the statements made by Comrade Ali. I call him Comrade. I'm sure a lot of Amazonians would not like me to call him Abdul Karim a comrade, because a comrade, brother, a friend. but he is now acting not like a brother. His statements in recent times meet up. They do not match. You do not understand the spirit behind his discussion. And something definitely must have happened. If you understand the humanity and the way things happen, when people start changing their narrative or their narrative and their thought pattern is not consistent with an objective or a purported objective that they may claim to project, then you know something has happened in the dark. Things happen in the dark, and we can only make speculations, and our speculations turn out to be true. I've defended Abdul Karim a couple of times when people say that he's a sellout, that he's being used by the colonial government to infiltrate. And now, what is the grievance of Comrade Ali, if you may want to ask? Why is he so vexed with the interim government and with President Sako, to the extent that he would have to make very, very irrational statements, condescending statements, I would say insulting? It's simple. Comrade Ali, because of the sagesse and the grandeur of President Sako, he thought that he could integrate Comrade Ali into a system to be a part of those that will represent our people on the ground. That is who Dr. Sako is. The opportunity and the platform Dr. Sako gave to Comrade Ali, no Ambazonian leader has given him or gave him. The government paid his flight ticket a couple of times from the Cameroons abroad so that he could talk, with the notion that Comrade Ali was somebody that is for the people. Now we realize that he's joined a criminal gang of I would say confused politicians who wanted their way or the highway. I'm not sure I can give a better analysis than what Comrade UN did yesterday. He gave a good analogy. Bo Herbert, Akwanga, those are they are individuals who believe that they are entitled to something in Ambazonia, and if it is not their way, then it should be destroyed. Because you follow their discussions and whatsoever is happening, there is no pattern. There's no reason why they must force themselves. Ambazonians have rejected these laws. Ambazonians have looked at them and seen that they do not have a vision. They are vicious. They are not visionaries. And Ambazonians are believing in the visionary, but they do not like it. They'll rather jeopardize, sabotage, and look for ways to cut corners. So our suspicion, it cannot be any than truth, that these individuals, they might possibly be doing all of this because of the engineering of the colonial government. And that's how the French system works. I would really want to apologize to Ambazonians watching us again. We deeply apologize that we will definitely, well, I'm not very sure, but if in the next 15 minutes we are able to rectify the technical issue, then the SOS for communications and IT may come live. I'm not sure I'll be able to change my outfit to host him, but I'll look at that. But if not, be rest assured, Friday you will have him, because we're going to talk on some of these things. There is no one in the struggle that I know right now that communicates Cameroon's plan to annihilate our people like Secretary Mungwa. I regret that we may not be having him on top of the hour like planned, but hopefully Friday we'll be having him. Thank you, ladies, for giving me the opportunity to speak and to speak this long on these very topical issues. The mic is all yours. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your wonderful contributions there on the whole news for today. Onyi?
Yes, and I'm sure that we'll get more report as the days goes by on Moja Moja. This is just the first official report we've filed in from Undaunted. So trust us to bring you more reports. Right about now, we'll get you the editorial.
In our editorial of today, we bring to you an article by Don Juan Obi. He titled The Shifting Battle Lines. In the past, they were insulting President Samuel Sako's investments, and today they're plotting against his achievements. Earlier on, they were ganging up against President Samuel Sako's inexperience, while now they are teaming up against his relevance and influence. Recently, they were attacking President Samuel Sako's appointments, and it seems they're today all about their disappointments. In the past, it was President Samuel Sako's humble beginning which excited their diabolical plots. But today, it's his greatness which has exited their low thinking. At the beginning, it was President Samuel Sako's silence which gave loudspeakers to their arrogance, but today it's his oratory that has crowded their ignorance. Yesterday, it was President Samuel Sako's authority which confounded their ambition, while this time around, it's his audacity which has dumbfounded their contraption. At the inception, they tried to disqualify President Samuel Sako for being a priest, but today they attempt to crucify him as a politician. Earlier on, it was President Samuel Sako's indelicate personality that was the debate, and this time around, it's his leadership which is the moderator. At the beginning, President Samuel Sako's caution was a political playground for their betraying activities, but today his passion is a Premier League for their poor sacrifices. In the dark past, they conspired against President Samuel Sako's mandate, but in the new light, it's his mandate which is the inspiration for progress. In the past, it was President Sako's office that attracted their fury, but these days it's his power which is protracting their acrimony. Earlier in the campaign, the imperfections of President Samuel Sako solicited their declarations, but this time around, his mastery is cast and cursing their blunders. Some time past, they gathered to feast on the newcomer status of President Samuel Sako, but at this new dawn, they're hopeless about his overcomer's reputation. At the beginning, they resigned themselves to counter President Samuel Sako's ideas, but today it's the fruit of his productive design which is the interest of their power ambitions. Don't let them make you become one of them, except you want to answer with jealousy for a name, have bitterness for a friend, wear hatred for fashion, and eat failure for breakfast. That was where he ended, and that's where we end our editorial of today. If you want to enjoy such articles, beautiful articles, kindly visit our website at www.abcambertv.com for more. Subscribe and become a club member today. Once again, I would like to exceptionally take you through our payment methods so that you can be a part of this winning strategy. It is simple. ABC Amber TV payment channels, Cash App, telephone, +1 240 486-8768. Hashtag $Amber ABC. Zelle, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation, telephone +1 240 486-8768. PayPal, payments at abcambertv.com. UK bank account, account holder, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation, sort code 231470. Account number 22990885. IBAN GB25TRWI 23147022990885. Europe account, account holder Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation, BIC TRWI BEB1XXX. IBAN BE42967309341854. Australian bank account, account holder Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation, BSB code 802985. Account number 211040023. Canadian bank account, account holder Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. Institution number 621 account number 2001102861148, transit number 16001. New Zealand account holder Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation's account number 04202110420357. Thank you for your donations. I am Star Smart and I'm reporting for Undaunted ABC Amba News.
And in sports, a Premier League and international footballer has been arrested in North London on suspicion of rape. The 29-year-old, who has not been named, was taken into custody on Monday morning, where he remains, as reported by The Telegraph. The Metropolitan Police told BBC Sport on 4th July an allegation of rape of a woman in her 20s was reported to police. It was reported the alleged rape happened in June 2022. The statement also added that on the 4th of July, a 29-year-old man was arrested at an address in Barnet on suspicion of rape and taken into custody, where he remains. Inquiries actually into the circumstances are ongoing.
South Africa got off to a flying start following a 2-1 win over 9-time record African champions Nigeria in their Group C encounter at the ongoing 2022 Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. Desiree Ellis' outfit scored twice in 2 minutes thanks to Jermaine Siopo-Senwe and Hilda in the 60th and 62nd minutes to destabilize their opponents, who were caught off guard by the quick-firing South Africans. Gabellison has more.
Latest world sports. Football. Premier League player arrested on suspicion of rape in North London. A Premier League and international footballer has been arrested in North London on suspicion of rape. The 29-year-old, who has not been named, was taken into custody on Monday morning, where he remains, as reported by The Telegraph. The Metropolitan Police told BBC Sport on 4th July an allegation of rape of a woman in her 20s was reported to police. It was reported the alleged rape happened in June 2022. The statement added, on 4th July, a 29-year-old man was arrested at an address in Barnet on suspicion of rape and taken into custody, where he remains. Enquiries into the circumstances are ongoing. Total Energies African Cup of Nations. South Africa defeats Nigeria in WAFCON Group C opener. South Africa got off to a flying start following a 2-1 win over 9-time record African champions Nigeria in their Group C encounter at the ongoing 2022 Total Energies Women's African Cup of Nations in Morocco. Desiree Ellis' outfit scored twice in 2 minutes thanks to Jermaine Siopo-Senwe and Hilda in the 60th and 62nd minutes to destabilize their opponents, who were caught off guard by the quick-firing South Africans. Banyana made their intentions clear right from kickoff, pushing forward with Thembi Gatlana and Siopo-Senwe asking the right questions and building momentum, which explained the 61% ball possession they registered at the end of the game. This is South Africa's second win over Nigeria in the past 10 months, having stunned the defending champions 4-2 in the Aisha Buhari Invitational Cup in Lagos. In another game, Botswana whitewashed Burundi 4-2, with both teams making their debut in the competition. Tomorrow, Zambia will battle things out with Tunisia, while Togo will take on Cameroon. Cricket. England versus India. Joe Root and Johnny Bairstow leading chase for host at Edgbaston. England are closing in on a sensational win over India in the 5th test after a riveting 4th day at Edgbaston set a target of 378, an England record. The home side thrillingly moved to 259-3, needing 119 more on the final day. In an electric period in the afternoon, openers Alex Lees and Zach Crawley shared a century stand in 19.5 overs, the fastest England have ever reached 100 without loss. India fought back with 3 wickets for 2 runs, either side of tee, only for Joe Root and Johnny Bairstow to pick up the pursuit with an unbroken partnership of 150. Root ended the day on 76 not out. and Burstow, who could have been caught twice, was unbeaten on 72. It leaves the prospect of a classic finish in front of a capacity crowd on Tuesday, after the free tickets made available were snapped up in little more than an hour. Earlier on Monday, India carelessly lost their last 6 wickets for 55 runs to be bowled out for 245. Cheteshwar Pujara was out for 66 and Rishabh Pant 57 before England captain Ben Stokes ran through the lower order for 433. India are 2-1 up and looking for their first series win in England since 2007, with this final test held over for last year after it was postponed in September. Gab Ellison reporting from Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
And with that sports report, we have come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, here is a recap of our major stories.
UK Home Office plans second flight to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda. Diodone Somba is on it again. He cries out as he warned the government about its university, dons and advisors. Sonatrol deprives students of electricity within GCE examination for 2 days. How Africa will recover from post-COVID-19 and the impact of the Ukraine war is a story we dissected today.
We also looked on the gimmicks of Yaounde's divide and conquer strategy. The anti-circle marks of Abdulkarim Ali has finally fallen was a story we got from Alangwe Joseph. An esports Premier League player arrested on suspicion of rape in North London. And that was it for Undaunted tonight, bringing to the news Untold Stories. On behalf of Michael Anchor, Star Stewart, and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in. I am Oni Okbala.
We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.